Rewind.
There we
Good
are.
morning. We are just starting the second part of how to win friends and influence people. Some people like to change the title. That's okay. It's all right. So we are doing chapter 1 and chapter 2, I think, of the second portion of this. If you are just joining in with us now and cluing in that we were doing this book study, hey, we're really glad that you're joining us. You can find the other recordings, I would imagine, minus the one that I did the other day that my computer ate, which is why we reloaded the computer. So in doing some coaching this week, I was really reminded why we chose this book.
It's like I was saying to Janelle, it feels like when you read some of these concepts, it's like it's almost hard to talk about because there's so many stories, so many things are illustrations, so many things are of simple things. They're not hard things.
No.
They're not hard things. They're not like, oh, do this and you'll be very influential and have lots of friends. No, they're simple, basic concepts that when, what's the word I'm looking for?
I find when done consistently, when practiced over time, they are going to make a huge impact on your life. But I think that they need to be simple in order for people to be able to implement them.
Mm-hmm. Also, when they're like done in a manner of choosing to do them, not just sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like if you only choose to smile sometimes, then only people are never going to really know, is she happy today or is she not happy today? And that happens. And especially when you've been in the workforce for multiple years, you get to know these people that you're not quite sure what they're going to show up with in the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their consistency is lacking.
You know, I think back on my work experience, and I think about different people that I worked for. And I wonder, like, if they had read a book like this, if it would have changed things for them, or I could hope that it would have. There's a couple people I would like to go back in time and give this book to. Actually, I'd like to go give a couple of these books that we've read to.
I could still go bring them. I think they're still there.
Yes.
But maybe that would just, help them moving forward just like it does us.
What was that statistic? Was that convention or was that just Bob Heilig that had said only 5% of people actually take part in doing personal growth? 5%.
I think that was Bob.
Was that Bob? It's a really, really sad number.
And it's pertaining to the comfort zone.
Yeah.
People find where they're comfortable, and then that's where they want to stay. And as soon as you are asked to move beyond that, if you guys are going to look at my status today on Facebook, it's a quote from Rachel Hollis.
Mm-hmm.
And it struck
you. Posted that. Good for you.
I did. I read it and I was like, yes, and yes, and yes. Because it is exactly what happens when we allow our minds to control our actions. And we're getting back into that again with the whole thought process of how powerful our thoughts are. Even in this book, they were already talking about it, right? And so this is the version of Rachel Hollis. Her graphic says, be humble enough to suck for as long as it takes you to become better. So here's the thought. How many people actually stop and think, I suck at this? Or do they say, oh, whatever, I'm doing this good enough, I'm not going to change? It's easier to not change than it is to change, right? Uh-huh. And so she says, so many of you message me asking me how to navigate around your fear of failure. And my challenge to anyone with this problem is always the same. Are you afraid of failure, or are you afraid of them watching you fail? Because there's a huge difference. And we all have that them in our lives, right? Yeah. And so if you want something different for your life, work, family, finances, etc., there's a good chance you're going to have to go try something new. When we try something new, we're rarely good at it. Why would you be great at writing your first book? Why do you think you'll be an expert at business when you've never owned a business before? Why do you believe you'll nail leadership right out of the gate? Be graceful with yourself as you navigate something for the first time, and also get over yourself. You want to achieve anything? Failure is the price of admission. The question is, are you humble enough to struggle your way through the beginning stages so that you can grow and become better? Hello, personal growth.
Yeah.
And having the honesty with yourself to face that them market in your life and say, look, I'm at least doing it.
Yeah.
I'm at least moving forward, and those people are the ones that aren't. Why are we stopping for them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally. And like Jarrett says that said that to Kristen when she started making videos. Why do you think that your videos are going to be good the first 100 times you do them? They're not going to be. You need to keep on doing them until you get better at them.
I was listening to a podcast done by Preston Pugmire, and he hadn't done some for I think since June or something. And all of a sudden he did one again, and he's like, I'm just going to tell you why I wasn't here. I got scared. I dropped into the imposter syndrome and said, what do I have to offer? And then he stopped. And he said, it doesn't matter how big your following is. It doesn't matter what rank you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You always work with yourself to push past beyond that. And so he's brutally honest, exactly that. Who is the them in your life that you're stopping for? Because it's ironic, because they are stopped. Mm-hmm. And if you stop alongside of them, nobody's going anywhere.
Yep.
I don't know. It just struck me that it was so pertinent to personal growth and Plexus. And it doesn't matter if you suck at doing lives, at least you're doing them. It doesn't matter if you don't have or you're not where you want to be. We probably aren't all where we want to be.
Yeah.
It's just a fact of growing, right? Okay. 6 ways to make people like you. 6 ways, only 6. That should be, remember?
Do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. I love this. I love how many times he references dogs.
Well,
it just keep it simple. Right? Everybody loves dogs because they're always happy to see you.
And it's a conversation that we've had multiple times. I think animals in general, often, not all animals, obviously, but very often pets, they're so unconditional in their love. And that's why people gravitate towards having a dog.
And not a cat. Cats don't like anybody. Well, cats decide on the day, right? So I was going to say, unless we're talking ducks, we probably should just stay with dogs.
I think so. I think that's a better idea.
Yeah.
I'd never thought about the fact when he said, did you ever stop to think that a dog is the only animal that doesn't have to work for a living?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And technically they do, because they're always their master's servant.
Mm-hmm. And they're happy to do it.
Yes.
A dog makes his living by giving you nothing but love. And I think too, I even think, if we're going to go into dogs, I even think about dogs who are working dogs and how happy they are to do it, right? Maybe I just haven't been around horses enough, but when you have horses that are working, you're never really sure if they're happy or not. They're just, but a dog who's herding cattle, they're thrilled. Mm-hmm. They're absolutely thrilled to be doing what they're doing, right?
And it's interesting to see it doesn't matter what dog it is. We were out at the rodeo this week, a couple of days, and there's a couple of those guys. This is pro circuit rodeo, so there's good cattle, there's good horses, and I love watching the behind the scenes of what brings everything together and why they're there. And so we sit in the back where we can kind of sit and see both ends of the show, not just the people actually performing. And a cowboy walks up in the back, and he's got this really neat looking small dog. He wasn't really big. He was very medium-ish, small build. And you could just, when animals, you can just see on his face. He was like ready to go, and he was just eyeing everything. He didn't even blink at the kids that came. Oh, there's a dog, right? He just kind of looked, where's the cows? Where's my master? He wasn't on a leash. He knew exactly where he was going. And the guy sat up on the fence. The dog sat on the bottom right by the chute where the cattle was coming through, and he watched every cow. He knew exactly where they were going. He knew his mission. He had been taught his mission. His master was right there. It's so illustrative of how we live life, right? And he didn't move once. He didn't disobey. The kids were all around him, but he knew the cattle and he knew his master. That's all he knew. It's so interesting to see how, relating that to people, how often don't we slip, and all of a sudden we pay attention to rather what's going on around us instead of our master and what our job is, right?
Yeah. Very good illustration, Marge, for this early in the morning. I'm proud of you. Look at us go.
I'm actually thinking.
Sorry? You're what?
I'm actually thinking.
You're thinking. I'm all about it. Over on page 52, again, still talking dog psychology, all of that stuff. But he's saying you knew by some divine instinct that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. I thought that was so interesting, just to put that in perspective of what we do. I had a friend this week. I was offered a local, I don't want to say local because I don't think anything on the internet's ever local, but a local follow loop that some girls in my city started. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. And so I reached out to somebody who was actually in Alberta. And I said, hey, I don't know if you do these kinds of things. She's been pretty vocal. She's a blogger. She's got a huge Instagram following. But she hates the swipe up option. Like she rages about it, which I think is really funny because it's totally just how you do things, right? And I certainly don't mind it, but she's very specific on what she thinks is right and wrong in the blogging world. Just a little opinionated. I don't mind. It's pretty refreshing. I just said, I don't know if you do these things, but I thought I'd extend it to you. Might be of interest to you. It doesn't cost anything, and it's not a whole lot of work. Like, it's just, I think it's really good. And she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to pass. She's really polite about it. And she said, you know, a piece of advice from somebody who's done this social media thing for a long time. She's been doing it since before social media was really a thing. She said, just let it happen organically. And I've been trying to chew on that and how often we try to make people like us in order to get more followers or to have more people be like paying attention to what we're doing. And then when I was reading this, I was like, oh, so maybe we can translate this to social media and relationships that we're building. Maybe it's not so much about what we have to say, but how we say it, and then what we say in response to what other people are saying.
People are not interested in you. They're not interested in me. They're interested in themselves, morning, noon, and after dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about the fact of meet them where they're at, that would be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we're merely trying to impress people and get people interested in us, we will never have many true, sincere friends. Friends, real friends, are not made that way. I just had a thought and it went away.
And it went away. And I think that that's where, I don't know, Marge, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But I know, like, there are some people that have retention issues. They post awesome stuff. They get the customers, they get the ambassadors to sign, and they have a really hard time keeping them around. And oftentimes, I wonder if it isn't because the focus is more on the product and less on the relationship.
Okay. So
and it's I don't know if it's a certain personality type or something like that, where we're just so excited about the information and we're so excited about getting it across that we do a great job of doing that, but we're doing exactly the same thing as the person down the street is that's trying to sell a candle. You know, oh, it's got 3 wicks. It sounds like fire, burning, crackling, whatever. It's going to burn for 50 bazillion hours, and then the jar is organic and you can preserves in it afterwards. Like we're spending so much time on the actual information. People love our product, which I get. Like, why wouldn't you love our product when you understood everything? But it's a relationship business. And if we're just trying to get them interested in the product or interested in us, it's not going to last for a long period of time. I love how Sheila does her social media. Absolutely love it. She's doing so much attraction marketing right now, and I watch you all the time, and I love it because it attracts me. She's not even marketing to me, but it's working because it's attractive to me. I see it. I want to engage in her life because I feel like she's sharing something that is beneficial to me. Like, it's not about her, it's about me. I don't know if you do that on purpose, but you do a good job.
And there's several things. There's several things. The one that stood out to me the other day when I read it was, don't talk at people, talk to people. Talk to people. When you're saying, you know, what was the example? See, I'm not as brilliant as I thought. The example,
reading that?
The example was posting something. This is pertaining to social media. Posting something that says, this is what here's a blog post, blah, 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 blah. Or taking that same blog post and saying, hey, have you ever, and then adding whatever that blog post is about, involving and talking to your audience, not at them, right? And so when it's like regular conversation, you wouldn't go up to someone and say, Sheila, and then talk at them instead of to them, right? And so when you're drawing in your audience, they want to feel, what does she mean by that? And why is she saying that, right? And if they're just reading a document, they're not going to hear you. They're just going to read something, and it's got no connection. And whether or not that information is going to resonate with them, it might, but that's like kind of a shot in the dark. But if they're like, hey, that she's got exactly what I'm thinking, you know, I better, and then they'll be drawn in, and they're going to start following, and they're going to start watching because it's resonated with their heart. Big difference, right?
Totally. And yeah.
It is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. It is from among such individuals that all human failures spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I thought where he started talking about this was so interesting. He said he could pick up any one of the dozens of stories that drifted across his desk every day. After reading a few paragraphs, he could feel whether or not the author liked people. Mm-hmm. If the author doesn't like people, he said, people won't like his or her stories. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, he said, the same things your preacher would tell you, but remember, you have to be interested in people if you want to be a successful writer of stories. And I think that that's the same for us. You need to be genuinely interested in people. And I saw a mug the other day on social media. I almost sent it to Marge. I almost tagged her in it because it was just funny. But I didn't want our names on it because it was so alternate to what we should be. It just said people, ... ew. And it was funny, right? But it's so anti what we should be, right? Like, we want to be genuinely invested in people's lives and in the outcome of their happiness, right? They're not a number, they're not a sale, they're not,
And I found it interesting. This next paragraph, like on page 54, he talks about the magician, right? Mm-hmm. How everything he did, he wanted to know the secret to his success. Everything he did, every gesture, every intonation of his voice, every lifting of an eyebrow. He told me that many magicians would look at the audience and say to themselves, well, there's a bunch of suckers out there, a bunch of hicks, and I'll fool them all right. But this other guy, I love my audience. I love my audience. I love my audience. And so he visualized what he wanted to happen, right? Again, going back to this rodeo last week, there's several statements that really caught me. when the ladies were starting the pro barrel racing, it's always such an intense, they split a second. A split second is split 3 ways. It's such a fine detail of time, right? It's down to so small amounts of time, and such a very small error can cost you the whole thing. And so there's a lot riding on it. And as the announcer was prepping and they were getting ready, he said, she's been in this arena. She's been here all day visualizing and telling herself what it'll feel like to have this good run, and the horse is going to perform in the way that she wants it, and she's going to, make those tight corners. She's visualized it. She's been thinking. She's been seeing it all day. Same thing. Your mind creates whether you're winning or not, right? And so I found it interesting that in all areas, you're starting to be more aware if that's what you're doing. But if you're still just that person that is not pushing past the comfort zone, that is not pushing into the growth zone, you're probably not even going to catch on to that statement. Do you know what I mean? Like it's something that probably would have blown over my head 5 years ago. What's visualization? What's manifestation, right? It's something that you almost have to learn to do before you hear other people doing it.
Mm-hmm. Also makes me think of, when you talk about the arena, always makes me think of Brene Brown.
Yes.
Because, and then when you are in that stage where you're learning how to visualize, how to manifest, how to see things, how to think those positive thoughts, like the barrel racer in the arena, how she wanted those tight corners. She wanted that. She's seeing it for herself. We were playing a game last night, and rolling the 7 was a negative. You didn't want to roll the 7. But as soon as you thought about rolling the 7, you rolled the 7. It happens every single time. And it's the same thing. And when Brene Brown says, you are the person in the arena. You are the man in the arena. You are the one covered in blood, dust, sweat, tears. Do not let anybody else give you advice unless they're in the arena with you. Mm-hmm. Unless they're in the dirt beside you, unless they're covered in blood, dust, and sweat. Because if they're not, they have no right to give you advice, and they have no idea what you're doing. Because they're the people where it just goes right over their heads. They have no idea. I always love that, and I always think about it when somebody comes up to me like, why are you doing this? What do you think you're doing? You're not in the arena with me. You have no idea.
Mm-hmm. That's very powerful. For sure.
Stands, go take your place.
Yeah.
Until you're ready to join me and do what I do, then we'll talk.
Then we'll talk. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want to shift a little bit because I think that sometimes people who are really, really good at setting goals and who are really laser focused on what they want sometimes miss the element of relationships. And even though in their heart, they are like, yeah, I really do want somebody's life to be impacted. I really do want their lives to be better. But the overreaching theme for everything is very clearly that they have a goal, they want to sponsor people, they want to move ahead, whatever. And we don't like that's great to have that kind of laser focus is fantastic. But in the business that we're in, we absolutely cannot discount the value of deeply caring for other people. It is so, so important. It is so important. And caring for people to the point where you need to almost detach yourself from the outcome and trust the fact that as you are caring for people well, this business works itself out. Mm-hmm. You can't get in there and just force it, right? That's when you lose people. That's when they always say, people quit people, not products, mm-hmm. right? The relationship is more important than anything else. And that is why we're doing this book.
I remember in the very beginning of my Plexus journey, and it must have even possibly been of the very, very first events that we went to. I can't recall exactly, but it was in Edmonton. And Eva it must have been the very first Super Saturday because she went Emerald December 31st at 10 minutes to the hour. And like, it was crazy. Nobody had ever done what she did. And I remember being online and watching this all happen and thinking, how in the dog is this lady doing this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And my belief was nowhere near what hers was at the time. And so this impacted me a lot. And then we went to Super Saturday. And so Keith Jackson was still our Canadian manager. Caroline Williamson was there. Alec came for that event. And I remember being in this little room, because there wasn't a lot of us, and someone, it was time to announce whatever her accomplishments and everything. And so the biggest question that was asked, and this was only the first time that I heard it, she's repeated it a million times afterward. Biggest question was asked was, what is your biggest tip? And she said, make sure that you help everyone else achieve your goals, and your own goals will take care of itself. And that was my very first visual of, oh, that's how it works, right? It wasn't, Marge has goals, Marge wants this to work, and oh my goodness, wouldn't that be cool to go Emerald? And that was the first time that it was visualized to me of lifting out beyond yourself and seeing, oh, it's not me doing me. It's me helping them achieve their goals. And guess what happens? Yours are going to happen too, right? And so it was such a visual step for me that I think is often lost in the illustration, because that's when we lift our eyes and start caring for the people. And
Yes.
our goals become less significant, less driven, but they happen because of what you're doing. I don't know. Just my memory of what that looks like.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I know we popped over this, but I really loved what he said, what the magician said here, because I really think we can carry this over towards our businesses. And again, in an abundance and gratitude mindset. I am grateful because these people come to see me. They make it possible for me to make my living in a very agreeable way. I'm going to give them the very best I possibly can. Mm-hmm. If we approached our businesses every day, and even people that aren't a part of our business yet, and just say, I mean, yes, you cannot be on all the time, but in every possible way, you can give people your best all the time. Yeah, does anybody else have takeaways? Like, obviously we can just talk, but.
Yeah, the sincere compliments versus flattery.
Yeah.
His example of the complimenting the guy's hair at the post office. And when he relayed the story, the reply back was, well, what did you want? And his line was, that is the point. He didn't want anything. There wasn't anything he could do for me any differently, whether I gave him the compliment or not. I wanted to make his day. That's it. And if we do every interaction with the, I want them to feel better at the end, it makes a world of difference, even in our own heads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When the interaction is negative and down, and if we can say or do something that, I think that'll make them feel better.
Yeah. I just had that conversation with my daughter yesterday. We were out at a store, and there was a man. He's an author, and every now and again he stands in our Sobeys selling his books. He writes stories all on Native culture and that kind of thing. And he's always standing wearing something, some sort of, do you know what I mean? Like he's not just standing there in jeans and a t-shirt. He looks the part. He is embodying his culture. And he reached out to just say hello. Good salesman. Wanted to pull me into his display. I had 3 hungry kids at home and 1 with me. And I smiled at him and I said, hi there. It's so nice to see you here again. Have a good day. And I walked past. And I just had this moment where I turned to my daughter and I was like, always be extra kind to people, because you never know how it's going to impact their day. And I thought, man, all this personal growth stuff that's really crappy to have to wade through when you're a grown-up, it really translates to parenting. I don't feel so bad that I'm not reading any parenting books right now. Doesn't make me feel so bad, because I think that these ones are pretty decent to filter down. And my kids are watching. Like, if I'm truly concerned about other people, that's going to filter down to my kids. You never know who's watching. Anyway.
Remember those things. Think back on your own childhood. You remember those things, right?
Yep.
If they were impactful, you do remember them.
Yep, totally.
I like where he talks about, well, I'm not that good at birthdays and names. I can really, my goodness. Like, if I was supposed to remember everyone's birthday, that's a big calling. But
I had a bit of conviction with this part. I really did. Yeah, because you know what I used to do? And this is, like, I have not gotten stupider. I've had children, so it's mushed a bit of my brain. But I'm pretty sure there's still some that's there. I used to work at a dinner theater. And every night, and I was a character server, but I also did the show. And every night that I did that, they only would give those of us doing the show 30 people to look after, because they figured we still had to have our brains about us to do other things. And so I would serve drinks to 30 people a night about. And every night I would learn everybody's name. And I could call each one of my patrons by name by the end of, by the middle of the show. So when dinner came around, I could harass them about not eating their peas and carrots or whatever. But it was a trick that my sister, somebody who was like a sister to me, she taught me that it brings you to a different level. And then I think I can barely remember the name of somebody I just met. One person. So where am I placing the importance of this in my brain? And birthdays, I'm even worse at. But I loved how he talked about, where did he say here? Where how he did his memory trick.
if he or she said November 24th, for example, I kept repeating to myself,
Yes.
November 24th. The minute my friend's back was turned, I wrote down the name and the birthday and later would transfer it to a birthday book. At the beginning of each year, I had these birthday dates scheduled in my calendar pad so that they came to my attention automatically. I mean, guys, think about it. We have Facebook telling us whose birthday it is. We have our phones telling us whose birthday it is. Their names are always there, right? It is so much easier, but it doesn't change the fact that we still have to use our own memory and make it a priority.
I have a friend growing up who her mom, at the beginning of the year, would go out and buy birthday cards for everybody that they knew. And they had a file folder. And they would write them out at the beginning of the year, and they would place them in the file folder by month. And every month they would go in and mail those birthday cards because that was really, really important to them. It's the things that we place importance on. And maybe a birthday card isn't that important to you. Like, you don't think that it's that important, but to somebody else who receives a handwritten note, I love doing those things for my team. I love doing handwritten notes because they don't expect it. And I think that's my favorite part about it, is who gets cards in the mail anymore just to say hi? Right? I love doing stuff like that, although I really suck at getting to the mailbox. I can write those cards all day long. I can put stamps on those suckers. Yep. Get into the mailbox. Why? It's like a trip to Mecca. It's like walking for 40 days and 40 nights, and stupid post office is like 2 blocks away from my house. Do not understand it. Anyway.
You should come live where we are. Our post office hasn't had internet for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Again?
Yeah. No.
I want to go live like Marge does.
No, don't.
If we want to make friends, let's greet people with animation and enthusiasm. When somebody calls you on the telephone, use the same psychology. Say hello in tones that bespeak how pleased you are to have the person call. Can I just give my own little illustration here? Today, we just talked about how many stories there were, and now I'm like inundating y'all with like more stories. In the previous business I did, I was fairly close with my highest ranking, kind of like Eva. And she ran her business a little bit differently in the summertime. I phoned her office one day, assuming I'd get voicemail, but one of her kids picked up. And they were like, hello, so-and-so's office, so-and-so speaking. And so I said, hey, is your mom there? And they're like, yeah, just a second. And I can hear them go, Mommy, the phone is for you. And she's on her other line. And I can hear her. And she's like, and she says to the other person on the phone, I've got to let you go. My child just answered my business line. Yeah, now I'll talk to you later. Click. Hi, how are you doing? I was like, what just happened here? Like, okay, I get the trying, but you missed it. And
Oh, that's funny.
so just thought that was interesting with the phone thing. Anyway, yep.
And it impacts people so much, right? Like, I think talking on the phone in general is becoming less and less. You see all the memes of what is it, like, don't try to call me, I'll answer when when I get your text or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, the whole concept of not answering your phone, right? And I get it. We're all like in a social media world, but I even just think back to growing up with the phone on the wall. And my dad ran a business out of the home with a party line. And I remember the party line women being on the phone, and he would be, you know, waiting to place a call to possibly book a load for his trucks, because he was a truck driver and he ran multiple trucks off of the yard. And so everything was done on the phone, right? And so all of his pickups and all of his drivers, all of his dispatching was all done from the home phone. And these women would be on the party line, yeah, and not really having a conversation. They were just there. And it would annoy him so bad. Like, think about how that would be translated into today's day and world, right? But it was people connecting. They were connecting whether they were together or not, right? And so it's funny how we have changed. We've become, we're hiding behind messages. We're hiding behind Messenger, behind text, you know, all those things, all those methods of conversation. But I often think about this when, like, John runs his business off of his phone. People call him for all his pickups and deliveries and stuff like that. And I can always hear if it's someone that he knows or if it's just work, right? And it's funny how you learn these habits, you know, he'll be answering, okay, yeah, be right there, bye. That's it. Just acknowledging the fact that they have called. Or if it's someone that he knows, and he'll be like, hey, how's it going? Before the person even, you know, acknowledges him. And so we create these lines of animation in our voices that people are acknowledged based on who they are. So if we were, and this is something I've really been working on, is connecting with my new people over the phone, like learning to have conversations with them over the phone, not just Plexus, but, you know, hey, do you have time for a 5-minute call? Can I just chat with you about this? And most people are like, not really, because people don't call on the phone anymore. Yeah. But some do, and they love it. And it's like, it's kind of a lost art. We kind of need to get back into that conversation mode, right?
Well, and if you're willing to do it at the beginning, it's way easier to ask them to do it later, right? Yeah, for sure. Okay, can we go to chapter 2?
One more thing, page 6.
Yep.
I liked where he says, we spent half an hour talking stamps, looking at the picture of his boy. Then he devoted more than an hour of his time giving me every bit of information I wanted without my even suggesting that he do it. He told me all he knew, and then he called in his subordinates and questioned them. He telephoned some of his associates. He loaded me down with facts, figures, reports, and correspondence. We can give people all the information that we want. We can give them the whole world of Plexus. Doesn't mean that they'll buy into you. Yep. That's what I saw there, right? It's like We can download them with every product info that we have. We can give them absolutely every testimony that we know of. But if you're not going to connect and get their buy-in, it's all in vain.
Yep. Totally. Love it. Becoming genuinely interested in other people. And that word is really important, genuine. Because some people might call it out and say, but I don't want to fake it. And then I think, then don't. Just be a nice person, because nice people are nice other people. Like,
okay, let's go there a little bit. I don't want to fake it. What is the wall that is there that is holding you back from being genuine?
What does it cost you?
But does that go back to the fear of them? What I talked about in the beginning? Who are you afraid of? Them? Is that your ego?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just okay for you to be genuine in your mind? Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Okay. A simple way to make a good impression.
So is that being afraid for other people to see who we actually are?
Possibly.
If that's something that is holding you back and that's something that you have as a thought about yourself, then likely, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think too, it takes the emphasis off of being self-focused and being others-focused, like becoming more others-focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did really like this. At a dinner party in New York, one of the guests, a woman who had inherited money, was eager to make a pleasing impression on everyone. She'd squandered a modest fortune on sables, diamonds, and pearls, but she hadn't done anything whatever about her face. It radiated sourness and selfishness. She didn't realize what everyone knows, namely that the expression one wears on one's face is far more important than the clothes one wears on one's back.
She had RBF.
She did. I thought that was so funny because, you know, singing in choirs and stuff like that, oftentimes the director will say to you, are you all happy? Mm-hmm. And everyone will say, yes. And they will often say, tell your face.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly, she didn't tell her face that she wanted to make a good impression. Actions speak louder than words, and a smile says, I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you. And how much does a smile cost?
Right? I will admit, that's me. Especially when I'm driving. Kevin always says to me, when you're driving, you look like you're ready to kill somebody.
You got your game face on.
Apparently. And I don't even know it. But now that I do know it, when I'm driving past a vehicle, I make sure to look up and smile. I'm not here to murder you.
The illustration that they used after about the baby's smile, that is so true. So true. It is. You can walk into a room and it's all adults and they'll all have their walls up and all have their guards in place, right? You bring a baby into that room, boom, the atmosphere changes. It's incredible, right?
Yep, totally.
Almost
smile. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to read. People who smile, he said, tend to manage, teach, and sell more effectively and to raise happier children. That's far more information in a smile than a frown. That's why encouragement is a much more effective teaching device than punishment. I wonder, I think back being an exhausted mom of 3 little kids under 3 years old. And I wonder how much I didn't smile because I just was trying to make it through. And I wonder how much of a difference it would have made if I just simply had started smiling more.
Absolutely.
And really, it's really hard to be grouchy when you're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of starts to change things in your brain.
Mm-hmm. And then back to page 65, he again talks about your voice,
mm-hmm.
of why this man had come to them, and he says, I think it was because the managers on the other companies spoke on the phone in a cold, business-like manner, which made me feel like just another business transaction. Your voice sounded as if you were glad to hear from me, that you really wanted me to be a part of your organization. You can be assured I'm still answering my phone with a smile. Because if your face has a smile, your voice is going to reflect it. And that's why Kristen always says, if you're doing voice messages, if you're using those methods to connect with your people, stand up, walk around, and smile while you're sending those messages, because it'll reflect in your voice when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Play that voice message back to yourself of what you've said. You can hear the difference.
Totally can.
Crazy.
Totally can. People rarely succeed at anything unless they have fun doing it. And why on earth would anyone want to join you if it doesn't look like you're having any fun?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Sorry, what?
The guy that was married for 18 years and was a grouch. Oh my goodness.
I want to know.
Like,
what?
I would like to talk to his wife. She must have had a heart attack.
I think it's more interesting what the mental shift was, what exactly it was that was said in this course that made him think that he should change.
Mm-hmm.
A, why did he take the course to begin with if he was such a grump? And B, what was the mental shift? I'm interested in the psychology behind why and how this whole thing came around. That's just me. Yeah, that poor woman, he should have given her a heads up.
And then he says, I soon found that everybody was smiling back at me. I treat those who come to me with complaints or grievances in a cheerful manner. I smile as I listen to them, and I find that adjustments are accomplished much easier. I find that smiles are bringing me dollars, many dollars every day. And me and Janelle have been kind of joking about this whole thing in a while. You know, when we have some pretty severe skeptics and people that are really set out to stand on their point and prove that Plexus is a scam, right? And they were like, oh, honey. Let me tell you.
I am so sorry for all the lies. And I can start the Southern drawl in it too because I think it's really funny. Honey, I am so sorry about all the lies that you have been told about this. Woofty. When you are ready to hear the truth, I am all over telling you all the things. And by the way,
it's interesting how even, like he said, complaints or grievances can be totally shifted by the tone of your voice and the expression on your face.
mm-hmm.
And I get this a lot because you get these messages and your team sends them to you and they're like, I don't even know what to say. I'm so offended. They don't probably say I'm so offended, but you can feel the offense in their message to you. And they're like, how dare she, right? And if you shift that in your brain and you're like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you were fed these lies. Do you want to hear the truth? And they're like, whoa, complete different disposition because of the way that you approach it, right? And that's all he really did there. He didn't go, oh, that's not true. He didn't retaliate with the same format as what they came to him with. And it's incredible how, that expression in itself.
Yeah, calms people, right?
Yeah.
Alternately, it can make people really angry. And I also find it fun. But that's a different book.
It's not
I've also eliminated criticism from my system. I give appreciation and praise now instead of condemnation. I've stopped talking about what I want. I am now trying to see the other person's viewpoint. And these things have literally revolutionized my life. I'm a totally different man, a happier man, a richer in friendships and happiness. The only things that matter much after all.
You don't feel like smiling? Then what? 2 things. First, force yourself to smile. If you're alone, force yourself to whistle or hum a tune or sing. Act as if you were already happy, and that will tend to make you happy. And it's true. You have to find your own ways that you can get yourself out of a funk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that being aware and recognizing when you are in a funk and finding those ways, this is something Preston Pugmire talks about a lot. How are you setting the tone for yourself, right? Do you just, and Abby Kappa talks about this where she says, pay attention to your subconscious. When you're just by yourself in your home and you're doing your regular everyday things, you're driving to get the groceries, you're cleaning your house, you're doing your laundry, what is happening here? Where are these thoughts going? Are you paying attention to them? Because if you're not, they're just going to ramble and you're just going to feed them all day long. And it probably won't be good. It'll probably be within your comfort zone, lies you have believed, things that you have told yourself that have become beliefs. It'll be consistent of what you're comfortable with. And so when you stop and you say, why am I thinking that? That's not even true. And then replace it, being aware of your subconscious. And like Preston says, and then find those ways that gets you out of that funk. Go turn on that music, crank it loud. If that helps, girlfriend, do it, right?
I always figure like funks are going to happen. Bad days are going to happen. Bad mindset moments are going to happen. You know that they are, just like there are a lot of things that you can anticipate are going to happen in your life, right? And so you prepare accordingly. This is no different.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be prepared with how you are going to handle yourself when you become discouraged, when it's harder to smile, when you don't feel like sitting down and working, because you are the one responsible for making yourself do the things you don't want to do. Where is the playlist that you're going to press play on? Like, do you have it ready? Or do you now need to go and find songs and figure out what's going to make you happy? Do you have a list of podcasts that just are uplifting that you like? Do you have somebody that you can go to be like, hey, I need 5 seconds to just bleh, and then I need you to tell me to suck it up, put on my big girl panties, and move on? Do you have your goals that are right in front of your face? Do you know what you need to do? Because it is so nearsighted for us to not have a plan in place for those days that it just feels like yuck.
And
Because
sometimes,
yuck is going to happen.
sometimes you're going to have to recreate that plan according to what works for you.
Yes.
Like, don't use someone else's plan, right? I like that he says action seems to follow feeling, but really action and feeling go together. And by regulating that action, which is under the more direct control of the will, we can indirectly regulate the feeling, which is not, right? And so there's our choice factor. That's the place of where we have a choice, and where he talks about the sovereign voluntary path to cheerfulness. If our cheerfulness be lost, is to sit up cheerfully and to act and speak as if cheerfulness were already there. So don't keep yourself in that funk. And like Janelle said, sometimes you just got to dump the bucket and move on. Don't stay there, right?
That's a choice. I like how he says here, happiness does not depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions.
Yes.
You have control over all of it. You ever meet somebody, and this is what kind of struck me here. You ever meet somebody who's just always unhappy? Always unhappy. And you just think, wow, that really sucks. Their lives something must have happened to them. And it's not a popular opinion these days to say, sister, that's on you, and you got a choice. That's not a popular opinion. But it's one that needs to be said a little louder.
Absolutely, because it's like the bad apple. It really rots everyone around them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so visual. It's crazy how you take these things in life and just, when they become visual and when they become things that you're aware of. Whereas, again, I think before we're focused on personal growth, we're often not aware. These things just kind of slide into our lives and they happen. I picked up a container of strawberries at Costco. I left them in Sheila's garage, didn't put them in her fridge. These are fertilizer bomb strawberries. They're not real. I just had lots and lots of real strawberries, and they don't rot overnight. I took these strawberries home and they were all over my fridge because they rotted immediately. And I'm like, this is garbage, But that is what happens with people. they preserve and stay well longer when they have a good mindset, when they're, you know, and going into the whole mindset thing, top of page 68, there is nothing either good or bad, said Shakespeare, but thinking makes it so. Like, positive thinking and mindset have been around ever since time, always. Abe Lincoln once remarked, most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And he was right, right? It's that choice of what we put into our subconscious and what we allow to be fed and what we feed ourselves. And so when you've always, again, like going back to Preston Pugmire, I have all these analogies today. When you go back to the SETBAR acronym and you think about your state and your emotions and the thoughts, well, the thoughts just create the beliefs that you already believe. So why are they there? If you have crappy thoughts and a bad subconscious, you created that. Stop it. Go change it. And it's not going to change overnight. It'll take feeding the good, learning it, doing it over and over, being aware of it, building those new beliefs. And it's going to have to be, you know, if you've spent 30 years building these negative ones, you're going to have to give it some time. It won't just happen overnight, right? Oh, now I'm just a positive thinker. No. It's a habit. You create it. Yeah.
For sure. Picture in your mind the able, earnest, useful person you desire to be, and the thought you hold is hourly transforming you into that particular individual. Thought is supreme. Preserve a right mental attitude, the attitude of courage, frankness, and good cheer. To think rightly is to create. All things come through desire, and every sincere prayer is answered. We become like that on which our hearts are fixed. Carry your chin in and the crown of your head high.
That's amazing.
As a man thinketh,
so
right? It's that verse.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The value of a smile at Christmas. It costs nothing but creates much. You just, like we said before, it is so simple. This entire chapter was all about smiling. That is his principle. Smile. That's it. It's not complicated. It's not magic. It's not a secret sauce. But all of these things done together, it is the culmination of all of these things that creates influence. So if you feel like you are lacking influence, these are small, measurable things that you can do, and you can go practice it. It's not hard. Some days it's hard. I don't know. Have an active. Go smile at people. I don't know. Yeah. All right. I think that's our end for today. I'm excited. So we're going to try to get through, where are we at here? 3, 4, 5, I think is in this. Oh, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe we can talk less next week.
Short. We can do 3, 4, 5.
Yeah? Can we do 6 in the chat then? I liked how you guys were sharing in the chat. I really, really did.
Really good.
Let's try to finish off this next section.
Yeah. And that
I would just like to keep clipping.
Yeah.
Because
what's our time factor looking like as in Saturdays? I haven't really, I need to look at that a little bit.
So that would be the 17th to be finished there.
Okay.
And then we've got the first section of that next one is pretty, I think we could do 1, 2, 3 there, 4, 5, 6. There. 7, 8, 9.
Is there anything happening this month on the Saturdays? Is it pretty straightforward? Can we just book each Saturday?
I think that there is a Super Saturday Express.
Is it in August?
I think so.
No, it's not.
I don't know. I may have deleted the email.
June. We did our last one in June, right? July, August. It's going to be in September.
No, there was one in August.
Maybe I'm wrong.
There was one in August.
August 31st.
August 31st.
From 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. art like Mountain Time.
For sure don't want to book that one.
No, but I was going to say, could we then bump our book club to 7 p.m. August 30th, like in the evening? Could we try to just shift it over to an evening spot and do that just so that we don't lose time? Marge and I are going to lose time.
In September, 2 Saturdays.
2 Saturdays in September. But hey, if you guys wanted to do book club without us, that would be really great.
You guys can totally do that.
We are looking for leaders to step up and offer. And if we have Amy doing it, she'll keep us on a tight schedule.
Sheila too.
Ooh, this could be good. Why are we doing this?
I'm
Maybe
right.
you two could be doing this all the time.
He doesn't have the book in paper copy. I do it in Audible.
Make notes.
Yeah, and they're on my phone, and it's hard to watch you guys.
Ooh, I'm hearing some excuses. Here.
I was just going to actually ask if we were doing a chapter by homework. Why aren't we doing a chapter by homework, like this first chapter, and then 4, 5, 6 being next week? Just so we do like a chapter on homework, and then we have a week, and then kind of
Like, do chapter 3 and discuss chapter 3 this week
in the chat.
in the chat, and then talk about 4, 5, 6? Or and then like conquer 4, 5, 6 next Saturday?
Unless anyone has any.
I'm not adverse to that. We can talk about 4. An easy way to become three.
If you don't do this,
Don't do this, you're headed for trouble. I really like this chapter.
4 is something that's really good. I think we should do 4 live.
Yeah, so let's do what Amy just suggested. I like that. Let's talk about 3 in the chat, and then we will cover 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll be about half done.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. It is not bad. How many of you guys, this is something I need to do better, but I really like the concept where Kristen says it's just as easy to read every day, a certain amount every day, as it's not. I need to get into the habit of doing that because I think that would be a really good habit to produce. I'm not so great with habits unless they're bad.
Talk to Sheila.
Those ones I'm
Honestly, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Oh, yeah.
The 4 years, well, after my first baby, I read a little bit. But after my second one, even before her, I didn't read at all. And I found that even just the speed at which I read had slowed down a lot. It took me a lot longer to read a chapter and comprehend it at the same time. And now I've been reading again since she was right after she turned 1, so it's not even a year. And I try, it doesn't always happen, but I try to read every day, even if it's just for fun. And the speed that I'm reading is really picking up. And I'm reading faster, and I'm comprehending faster, and I'm getting through more books just because it's become a habit again. And it's something that is easier the more I do it.
I totally noticed that. Like, I'm slower. I used to read books in a matter of boom, 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 and just go through them. I'm so much slower. I take longer to chew on things. Really need to step it up.
My mom and I were talking about, she decided she was going to keep track of all the books she read this year. She's averaging 12 books a month, so that's a book every other day. So she buys all the books for our church library, and she reads every single one before she puts it in.
Can I have her job?
She's retired. There's no job.
That sounds awesome.
That's what she does for fun.
I told myself I would read 12 books this year, and I'm currently finishing books 7, 8, and 9.
Oh my goodness. I've got some work to do.
That's really good.
And that's like 12 books was a really, really big goal. I didn't know if I could do it, but I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And oh man, yeah.
I have a recommendation for you guys if you want a really good book, even to listen to on Audible, get you really fired up about passion. It's a faith-focused book. It's called, it's called Sun Stand Still. And it's so good. Like, it's so good that I'm listening to it. I'm almost done it on Audible. I'm going to order it in the paper copy. I'm going to order one for my husband also, and then there is a study to go with it. And I've got somebody on my team who actually would like to go through it with me. It's very cool. It's a very cool book.
I want to get that on Audible.
It's so good because it's a Stephen Furtick book, and he just preaches the whole thing. You're just like, yes!
I'm finishing one like that by Bishop T. Jakes.
Crushing.
Oh, are you doing Crushing?
Crushing. Yeah, so good.
I'll take responsibility for that one because that was Nolan.
I just wish that he was the one that was reading it in the Audible version.
Yeah.
Because it would be even better if he was the one reading it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a John Maxwell type voice, right? Like, you just listen to that all day long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Awesome. Have a great Saturday. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you for being here.
See you later.
Have a great Saturday.